Hi, this is Charlie with Boxing Focus, and a follow-up to my video predicting that Eubank Jr is going to beat Billy Joe Saunders, especially in light of the press conference that Eubank Jr showed up to, and then a few other things that I've watched as I paid more attention to the build-up of this fight, because I'm really anticipating it quite highly. So, there's an interview with Bradley Pryce on YouTube. I will link that in the description. Now, at around the 16-minute and 30-second mark, around there, they start talking about the Eubank Jr and Saunders fight. And Bradley Pryce is the only common opponent between Eubank Jr and Billy Joe Saunders. Even more interesting is that Billy Joe Saunders, in the press conference, brings up Bradley Pryce, saying, "We've got a common opponent. You think you've got all this power, you didn't stop Bradley Pryce." He says that to Eubank Jr, and it was quite a fascinating moment. Now, Bradley Pryce fought Billy Joe and Chris Eubank Jr back to back. Back to back. There was a 6-month gap in between, but still, they were consecutive fights. This was Eubank Jr.'s 8th professional fight. It was Billy Joe Saunders' 14th professional fight, and Billy Joe, at this point, I think, was fighting for the Commonwealth title for the middleweight. Now, Bradley Pryce is a seasoned professional. He's had a lot of fights, primarily at light middleweight. He originally fought at welterweight, so he's kind of grown it. He now says that he struggles to get below middleweight. So it looks like middleweight's his future. Although he's not got a good record at the moment, he's lost an awful lot of his recent fights. But this is going back some time. This is going back several years when he was winning the vast majority of his fights. So, Billy Joe Saunders technically dominated Bradley Pryce, and I did watch this fight live, and I can't remember it, which seems to be a trait of all of Billy Joe Saunders' fights that I've seen live. I've seen about 5 of them live, and it's like they've been wiped from my memory. I don't remember any of them. I just remember that I watched them. He also fought Chris Eubank Jr on Channel 5, and I watched this one live as well, and I kind of remember it. But anyway, I went back to YouTube for refreshers on both. The fights, neither of the fights are on YouTube. There's just some highlights. And the highlights for Eubank Jr are posted on Eubank Jr.'s channel, so they're possibly not the most impartial. The Billy Joe Saunders highlights are sandwiched in a whole evening's worth. Basically, Billy Joe Saunders' highlights with Bradley Pryce amount to a bit of jabbing, which I think, he's basically just used his footwork, his movement, and his superior ability to outmaneuver Bradley Pryce and dominate him. Eubank Jr, on the other hand, was looking for big shots and a knockout, and if you watch the highlights, he landed a few, and he bust Bradley Pryce up and hurt him. Although Bradley Pryce did claim after the fight that he was never hurt, but that's how boxers are. I think it was pretty obvious he was hurt on a few occasions. So it's interesting that Saunders brings this up, because if you do watch footage of the fights, it looks like Eubank Jr is basically playing with him. He's kind of messing around, doing his posing, his movement, making Bradley Pryce miss a lot, and then picking him off with big power shots and fancy combinations. Whereas Billy Joe Saunders, probably beat him more comprehensively, but in a less dominating fashion. It's not like he was ever in any danger of stopping Bradley Pryce. He never hurt him. So it's curious that Billy Joe brings it up as to point out that Eubank Jr. doesn't have more power than him, because it actually, when you look at it a bit more closely, it actually does make Eubank Jr. look like the bigger puncher. And this is earlier on in Eubank Jr.'s career, 8th professional fight, when he's still kind of learning, he's still growing into the professional ranks. He's still mixing up between stopping fighters and beating them on points. Recently, Eubank Jr. just knocked everybody out. Now, you say what you want about the calibre of opponents, but you can only beat who's in front of you, and he's beaten them decisively lately. So since then, he's not looked back. He's basically stopped everybody. Now, interestingly, when asked in this, so going back to the interview, sorry, a little bit of a journey there in the conversation. Going back to the interview, Bradley Pryce predicts that Eubank Jr. will knock Billy Joe Saunders out. He says that Billy Joe Saunders is the better boxer, but Eubank Jr. hits a lot harder, and that he will get to Billy Joe Saunders and end up stopping him late on. So the one common opponent that Saunders brings up is probably not the best argument for him to be making, because not only did Eubank Jr. look much more stylish against him, Pryce also predicts that Eubank Jr. is going to win. So I found that one quite interesting. The other thing that's quite interesting is Billy Joe Saunders and his bluster. The guy is such a bullshitter. It's really difficult to listen. It's awkward to listen to. He's so awkward. He's going to retire if he fails to stop Eubank Jr. within 6 rounds. What a stupid thing to say. It really is. Just so, it's like, it's hard to respect somebody who talks like that. It's really, really hard. And you have to respect him because he's getting in the ring. He's doing a very dangerous sport. He's doing something a lot of us he possibly wouldn't do or aren't capable of doing. He's achieving things. But the guy's just, what's going through here? What is going through here? You're going to retire if you fail to stop him. What kind of stupid thing is that to say? And he's going to retire if he loses, of course, by extension of that. He's not going to retire. It's the most moronic thing. It just makes him look like a dick. It makes him look like a big, giant dickhead by saying that. It really does. Tony Bellew, I find really annoying most of the time whenever he speaks. I find Tony Bellew really difficult to listen to. But when he did a face-off with Nathan Cleverly, and he was asked, because they're always asking these hyperbolic questions, will you retire if you fail to beat Nathan Cleverly? And it's actually possibly more justified in this case because Tony Bellew and Nathan Cleverly are much deeper into their careers. They get knocked back a lot further if either of them loses at that point. If Billy Joe Saunders or Chris Eubank Jr. loses, they have to go and regroup. But they're both young lads. They've both got a long career ahead of them. They're both very good. Losing is not the end of the world for either of them in terms of their boxing career. You just go back to the drawing board and come back fresher. Learn your lessons. But anyway, the guy asked this question to Tony Bellew, and he says, "No, my fists are what put money on the table for my family. My fists feed my kids. I'm not retiring. I will fight until I can't fight anymore." And that's, I massively respect him for saying that. None of the hyperbolic nonsense. It's just really annoying to listen to Billy Joe Saunders. Just almost everything that comes out of his mouth is either a bad joke or something stupid, and it's really awkward to listen to. Maybe if you're his mate you'll find it funny, but for the rest of us it's just kind of shut up, you're making yourself look stupid, you're making yourself look foolish, be quiet. He will get that thrown in his face for the rest of his career if he loses to Eubank Jr. Really, really annoying. And even funnier, the reaction of his trainer is like, "Well, I haven't heard that." Of course, because you don't listen to all the bullshit that your protege or your charge lets fly out of his mouth. I mean, it's just funny. But if you can sit through all of the crap that Billy Joe Saunders speaks, there are a few little tidbits that are useful to us as boxing fans that illuminate what he's planning to do on the 29th. So, when asked, in the press conference, Eubank Jr brings up going toe to toe, going to war. He's prepared to die, all this kind of crap. And Billy Joe kind of plays up to it a little bit, but it's a little bit vague. But in a follow-up interview, and it's on the official Box Nation channel, he says he won't, basically concedes he's not looking to go toe to toe. Basically he's not going to be there to be hit, which means he's going to be on his back foot. He's going to be moving a lot. This is going to be his game plan going in. He's going to use his superior work rate and his superior experience / technical boxing ability, is kind of his amateur approach to the game, in order to just take Eubank Jr.'s offense away from him. So it seems quite clear that Billy Joe Saunders is going into this fight for the long run. He's actually aiming to win it on points, which makes what he says even more stupid. On top of that, he's saying that it's going to be an easy fight, and that Eubank Jr. is crap, yet he trains really hard. Eubank Jr. nails it when he says that Billy Joe is a walking contradiction. He really, his thoughts between different moments are just all over the place. So anyway, it's clear that Saunders is coming into this fight in order to win it on points. He's not a big puncher. Billy Joe Saunders is not a big puncher. So it's more the shots he catches guys with that they don't see coming, but that do the damage. As he piles on an accumulation of punches. But I think this back foot thing is a bit of a mistake. I think if he goes on the back foot, I think this is going to play into Eubank Jr.'s hands. And the reason I think that is I think that Eubank Jr. is not the finished article. If you watch any of his recent fights, he has several big flaws. So one of them is when he winds up to punch. Well, it's not really winding. When he executes a big punch, he drops the other hand. So as he comes with a left hook or a left uppercut, his right hand sinks. And the same the other side. So he's going to be opening the exchanges. Now, if you're trying to exchange with somebody and you're moving backwards, it's much harder to generate any kind of power. You basically, if you do land, it's the momentum's all wrong. So it's going to be difficult for him to land a really solid shot unless it's unless he's nice and compact. It's a nice short hook, the kind of one that a great example would be Juan Manuel Lopez on Orlando Salido in their second fight. As he's spinning away from the ropes, he catches him this beautiful short right hook on the inside and drops Salido. But you have to be taking a lot of fire in order to get those kind of shots off, and that's not what Billy Joe's looking to do. So he won't be able to take advantage of the exchanges if he's going to be on the back foot like that. The other thing is, the other big flaw for Eubank Jr. is his footwork. His footwork isn't great. He likes to pivot on his front foot, on his left foot. But what he often does is he'll step around on his right foot and he'll get caught with his feet close together, which affects it. You see him, he gets a little bit straight up, and if Billy Joe Saunders is putting Eubank Jr. on the back, if he's coming forward and pushing Eubank Jr. backwards, if he gets Eubank Jr. to pivot like that and get his feet too close together and then is continuing to punch, and Billy Joe Saunders is a good combination puncher. He's a very good combination puncher. So if he does that, he can really catch Eubank Jr. in awkward spots, possibly even get flash knockdowns by getting him off balance, hitting him with a punch. He's got his balances off and he goes down even though he's not hurt. I think those are the kind of things that, taking advantage of Eubank Jr.'s openness in an exchange and taking advantage of him being off balance would be two of the best things that Billy Joe can do. But to do that, he has to fight more aggressively, he has to come forward. And it will help take Eubank Jr.'s power away as well. If he's coming forward, if he's closing the distance, and he's making Eubank Jr. step backwards, it's much more difficult to fight, to throw big power punches if you're going backwards. If you're going backwards, sometimes it can play into a power puncher's game because they can step into their punches, and so I'm curious how that's going to work out. If that's his strategy, I think it could be the wrong one. I mean, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. You don't really want to be getting into a war with a power puncher, but you don't want to give him too much ground. You don't want to give him space to really launch into his shots. Not unless you're able to just pick them off. And I think that Eubank Jr. may be a little bit too athletic for Saunders to do that. He's not a John Ryder. He might be strong, but he's flat-footed. He's not Bradley Pryce, who's not that big and can't close the distance without tucking up tight and absorbing. He really, really is a big, strong, athletic middleweight, and he will be able to get forward with pace and power. And if Saunders is not stopping him getting forward, if he's not, he needs to be using a strong jab and good combinations to push Eubank Jr. back and take his power away. And that sounds a bit like Russian roulette, but sometimes you've got to really push back against a strong fighter, otherwise he will overwhelm you. And I'm with Bradley Pryce. I'm with the guy who's faced them both. I think Eubank Jr.'s power and Billy Joe Saunders' loose, open guard at times, and his amateur style is going to count against him. He's going to be trying to land too many shots, and Eubank Jr. is not going to be respecting his power. It's going to make him miss, and he's going to make him pay. And that's how I see the fight unfolding. So it's a fascinating one, a really fascinating one. This is a lot longer than I intended it to be. Hopefully there's some interesting insight in there for people watching. Or if you think I'm pulling a Billy Joe Saunders and speaking a load of nonsense, please feel free to comment below. I appreciate the feedback. This is Charlie with Boxing Focus. Looking forward to fight night.